Hello and welcome to the My VA Dayton podcast, coming to you from Dayton, Ohio. This is the show where we talk with veterans in the Western Ohio region to share their stories and share what's happening at the Dayton VA Medical Center.
I'm your host, Gregory Tucker, and today we have a special episode in honor of Black History Month. We'll be highlighting the incredible contributions of Black Americans in the military and their impact on the arts. Joining us are three remarkable guests who have served their country and made significant strides in the world of music and entertainment. First up, let's hear from Emmett North Jr., a U.S. Army veteran and renowned guitarist. Emmett's talent has taken him around the globe, playing alongside legends like Isaac Hayes and Barry White's Love Unlimited Orchestra, and allowed him to rub elbows with some of the other greats, such as appearing on the Wolfman Jack show and having a chance meeting with the godfather of rock and roll, the famous Chuck Berry.
So, not many people with talent like yours choose to go into the military. Can you tell us why you chose to serve, why you chose to join the Army, and what was your calling or inspiration?
Well, actually, I had a band when I was 17, my own band, and
What was the name of that band?
the Ohio Twisters. And it's kind of a funny place. Ain't that many Twisters coming through here, like Texas or LA, But anyway, I went to Cincinnati and found out I had to register because they were still like drafting you into the military when I was doing my time.
Right.
And there were people, I had a good friend who played guitar with Newburgh, who had just passed in the past 3 weeks. Me and him played guitar together, and we ended up at Fort Dix, New Jersey together. Now, I didn't know he had joined because I went to Cincinnati on the bus to go to the center down there to be, I guess, interviewed and checked out and stuff to be explained to. There was another guitar player from Dayton who went to Cincinnati with me who he taught me a few things when I was learning. He played gospel music, and that's how we met. I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina first. Then at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, I left to Fort Gordon, Georgia. At Fort Gordon, Georgia, I met Frankie Lyman. The singer used to be with Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers. But I didn't know who he was when I was there at the time. We had went to the recreational place where you rent out, you can get instruments if you need
Right.
guitar, bass,
MWR,
and drum.
yeah.
Yeah, I forgot what they call it now.
And I think now they call it MWR, Morale, Welfare, and Recreation.
Yeah, I forgot what it used to call the room, some kind of room. But anyway, you could, get other games and stuff.
Right.
That your friends gonna play with. Anyway, in that particular room, I would rehearse and stuff a lot to myself there. But anyway, I was in the Army. I tell you, a lot of the times I got off KP and guard duty because the officer wanted me and my band to play.
So you had your own band. Did you ever think about getting into a military band? Was that ever a part of your career path in the military?
Well, actually, I had two bands when I was in Germany. I had my band of soldiers that I played with. That was my military band, but we didn't actually do any military stuff. The USO thing for the service for 3 weeks, and that got me off guard duty in KP, and I was traveling to other cities, so I'd rather been doing that than stuck it, with smaller groups. But when I left here in 1970, beginning of 75, I left here to actually go to LA to audition for a singer called Bobby Womack, which was a songwriter and singer himself.
Right.
He was actually Sam Cooke's guitarist. I listened to a lot of his records before I left. I noticed what label he was on. I was playing with a gospel singer when I left. So when I sometimes sing on her shows. I would do some of Bobby's stuff. So I called and spoke to him, telling him I wanted to come out to LA and audition for him. Bobby was also from Ohio. He was from Cleveland. So we had two things in common,
Right.
well, more things in common. So I said, yeah, well, whenever you get out to LA, look him up. So he didn't know 2 months later I would be looking him up, When I got to my aunt's house, my Bobby Womack's office called my aunt's phone number. So I left the number at his office to reach me whenever I got in town. So they called me, and I didn't believe it was him, so I hung up on him. And my sister, I told her, I thought it was my cousin who also was from Dayton, playing a joke. So he rang again. And I told my sister I wasn't going to answer. I told her it was my cousin Donnie playing jokes. So she answered the phone, and it was Bobby Womack. And I almost fell to my knees. So we talked for a few minutes and told him who I was, and I wanted to audition for him. So he gave me his address in L.A. So I was staying in Pasadena, I guess about 10, 15 miles outside of L.A. Anyway, he said, give me your address and I'll mail you some of my albums. So he mailed me about 3 of his albums to listen to. And I did. And once I got to Bobby Womack's office, I found out going to his office, his PR guy told me that Bobby was in New York at the time at record label. He said he helped me out as much as he could. I told him I came out to LA to audition for Bobby. And I said I didn't know he wasn't going to be here. He just said, well, you give me a name and number and address. And he says, look, Bobby's going on tour in a few months. And he says he's only going to be on the road for like a month over in Europe. And then when you come back to the United States, you're going to be out of work again. So he says there's other artists in the building like Barry White. He says, and I hear Barry White put you on a retainer. And he's also looking for guitar players. So that piqued my interest because Sammy Davis Jr. had an office in that building. Wolfman Jack's producer had an office in the same building. So I just told Bobby Womack's PR guy, I may as well go to everybody's office and fill out an application.
So it was blind luck that you fell into that, huh?
Right. Good timing, too.
Absolutely. Everything's about timing, the right place at the right time.
People were looking for guitar players at that time, so
yeah.
It got really good for me.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that. After that, I just went down from the 10th floor to the 5th floor to Barry White's office. Told it, little did I know his sister was at the front desk. I told her who I was and what I come to do, play guitar for Barry White audition. And she sent me to another office, and other guy in the office, other offices were Barry's school friends. So he sent me down to the rehearsal studio, tell them who I am, and they're going to check me out. So I went and did that, and 3 weeks later, it was history because I went and met Barry at Soul Train. I had lived with the band members for 3 weeks, learning Barry's music before I even knew I was going to get hired.
So how long did you play? How long did you play with Barry White?
10 years.
Wow,
not
10
all
years.
At one time.
Right, and you played with other.
I played with him from 75 to 79. Then in 79 and 79 and 80, I was working for Wolfman Jack. And I got a chance to work with Chuck Berry on Wolfman Jack's show. But I had met Chuck Berry. I ran into Chuck Berry 2 weeks before we met on Wolfman Jack's show. I was leaving Dayton on red eye going back to L.A., and I had to stop over in St. Louis, which is where Chuck Berry's from. So Chuck Berry was at the catching a late, called that red eye from St. Louis back to L.A., and the gate that I was going to was hardly any people at that gate. He was the only person at the gate.
Oh, really?
Just a bunch of women. When I got over to see who it was Chuck Berry. So I just said, no, I'll just chill out on this.
Yeah.
I backed out. So 2 weeks later, I didn't know that Chuck was going to be on Wolfman Jack's show. When I got back to L.A., I didn't know he was going to be on that show either. So his band, he played on the show with our band, the band that I was playing with Wolfman Jack. So in other words, I played with two people, famous people at the same time. Now, I'm going to play one of my songs that was recorded on one of my smooth jazz albums. And it's also a jazz fusion album called In the Zone. This song is called Montuno. It's got a Latin feel to it.
We'll have our next guest up after these messages. Our next guest will be Alan Bomar Jones, a U.S. Navy veteran and accomplished actor. We'll hear more of his story after we return from this break.
This is a message from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. If you were exposed to toxic substances while serving in the military, a new law called the PACT Act may make you eligible for additional benefits and care. The PACT Act benefits veterans of the Vietnam era, Gulf War era, and post-9/11 era who were exposed to toxic fumes, burn pits, Agent Orange, radiation, and other environmental hazards. Survivors of toxic exposed veterans and veterans who served in specific countries in Africa, the Middle East, and Southwest Asia are also potentially eligible. Learn more about the PACT Act by going to va.gov/PACT or by calling 1-800-MyVA411. We at VA are here for you, and we're ready to get you the care and benefits you've earned and deserve. I'm Mike Richmond.
And welcome back. As mentioned, we have some excerpts from our guest, Alan Bomar Jones, a U.S. Navy veteran and accomplished actor. One of the things that Alan shared with us was by him serving in the U.S. Navy, it taught him the importance of teamwork and dedication, along with qualities that are essential in the world of acting and filmmaking. Now, Alan has appeared in numerous films alongside Hollywood heavyweights like John Travolta and Matthew McConaughey. Let's hear more of Alan's story. Now, Alan, how did you start with this acting?
Well, and that's a great question because that's going to bring me back to how I got into the military.
Okay.
What a lot of people don't know is I was, for lack of better words, a juvenile delinquent when I was in high school. I get to the 12th grade and I decided to drop out and just to see what the streets were like, which was not a good idea. However, what I had the advantage of is I had two older brothers who went into the Navy. And I'll never forget, one day I'm hanging out at home, getting ready to catch the bus downtown, and my oldest brother came home on leave. And man, when he walked in that door with that Navy uniform on, I didn't know what to think. I was just in awe. And, you know, his hair was clean cut. And I mean, it was a really great moment for me. And he asked me while he was home from leave, what was I going to do? You know, now that I'm not in school anymore, am I going to go to college? What's going on? And I really didn't know. He said, you know, you need to get in the military. You know, I just kind of ignored him and was like, okay, whatever. And then he asked me once he got out, which he was on the verge of his last year, that I should come live with him in Chicago, which I thought that was cool. So I hung out on the streets of Dayton for that whole year. And then by, I'd say probably late summer, I went and stayed with him in Chicago. And while I was there, he talked me into going into the Navy. He took me down to the recruiting office. I didn't even know he was going to do it. And he said, I want you to go in and talk to these people. Because he could see that I wasn't motivated to do anything. And I went in there and I talked to them. And the next thing I know, I'm on a late night flight to a boot camp in Great Lakes.
You were Shanghai?
I'm telling you, man. Hell yeah. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me because I really embraced the experience. Because I've always been a kind of young man that when I do something, I put my all into it, whether it's good or bad. And so when I got into the Navy, I wanted to be the best. I wanted to excel, and I did. And as a result, 2.5 years later, when I got out, I went straight into college because I had that VA, school tuition money coming in. And, the rest is history because, this is the part I need to not miss in being in the military. So I'm on base, and there was a part-time job open up that you could operate the movies at night for the soldiers. And I said, I'll do that. So what I would do is go in, I'd set up the chairs, and I would go in the booth. And back then, it wasn't as easy as pushing a button. You had to really take these large reels and put them on, you know what I mean, and feed them down in through the camera and back around.
Right, thread it.
Yeah, and when I was doing that, and inside of the reels, the case was the synopsis of the movie and all the actors, and it talked about that. And that was when I got my bug and said, man, that looks like something I'd like to do. But I've got to tell you one of the funny experiences of doing that. So I'm sitting in the booth, and I'm operating, and I start the movie. Everybody said not there. And the movie comes on, and nothing. Nothing. Somebody looked back and said, hey, Alan, turn the sound up. So I'm reaching around trying to turn the sound up, and I look at the case, and it said silent movie. And I stuck my head out the booth. I said, it's a silent movie, and they all busted out laughing because that's when Mel Brooks did Silent Movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it really was a silent movie because I thought I had messed up, man. But anyway, after I got out of the military, that's when I decided to go to Sinclair Community College, start taking acting classes. And from there, I just started auditioning. I have to give kudos to community theater because that's where I got my acting chops. And then I became a resident artist at the Human Race Theater Company. And then from there, I got the confidence to just go out into wherever it was within driving distance and audition and start working as a regional actor. And then I'd say probably in 2018, whenever I did Criminal Activities, that was my first movie. I started auditioning for them, and I started finding luck, and I said, this is a lot easier. You go in one day or 1 week and you work and you're done. With the play, you got to rehearse for 7 to 8 weeks or 6 to 8 weeks, and then you put the play on for 2 or 3 weeks, so it takes months and months. And I thought, this is much easier. So I've been focused mostly on the movies and TV.
Yeah. So what was your first role as an actor, whether not just movies, but period, on
period.
Stage,
That's
What's
really
your
good.
very first role?
Well, how far back do you want me to go?
All the way back.
Okay. I'm in the 4th grade, okay?
There you go. That's what I'm
and our
asking.
teacher would take us to the auditorium, and we'd get on stage, and we didn't know she was prepping us for a show. She'd teach us how to project and all that. And then about 4 or 5 weeks later, we did this show, and I played the King of the Sea. And my line, which I always say when I tell people, my line was, I am the king of the bottom of the sea, and everything that lives here belongs to me. The fish, the crustaceans, and the shells. I am the king of the bottom of the sea. And that was all I had. And man, I was the proudest king.
And you didn't get the role for Little Mermaid?
No. No.
They should have hired you on the spot for that.
I know.
So what was your first serious acting role?
Really good. I love your questions. My first really serious acting role would have been Fences by August Wilson, directed by Sheila Ramsey, the late Sheila Ramsey, a very good friend of mine. And she actually introduced me to August Wilson because when she was going to direct it, she called me and said, hey, have you ever heard of August Wilson? I said, nope. She said, come on down here and audition I'm doing Fences, and I want you to audition. I said, okay. So I go down and audition, and she gave me the lead role, which was Troy Maxim. Now, I don't know if you know anything about Fences, but Troy Maxim talks 85% of the time in the show. I had never, to that point, had that amount of lines to memorize. And I was teaching at Colonel White at the time, and then going to rehearsals at night. So trying to fit in memorization was mind-boggling. And she sat me down, and she told me something that I pass on to the young people that I teach right now at Right Stage. She said, Alan, you have one job as an actor. Learn your lines. She said, I'll do the rest. I'll direct you. I'll make you good. But you got to know your lines. If you don't know your lines, then you're no good to us.
So is there a secret to that?
I mean, there's methods for sure. And it's funny, this is so timely. I was just working with a young man who's a comedian in town, and he wants me to teach him to be an actor. His name's Neil. And one of Neil's biggest problems is memorization. And so I went through a list of memorization techniques that I have used over the years that will work really well for him. But, also you got to commit the time to it. And, things like, for instance, now that they have cell phones, this is an easy method to use, is if you're doing, like if you have scenes, you do the other person's lines, then you don't say anything. Then you do the other person's lines, then you don't say anything. You do the other person's line, then you play it back, you listen to their lines, and then you fill in with your line. Then their next line comes, and then you fill in with your line. Well, two things happen. One is you start to get the flow of doing a scene, and two, you're learning your cue lines when you're supposed to speak. That was what the problem was. Remember I was telling you guys about my acting class when I got here? Yeah. That was the problem on Monday. They're standing on stage going, is it my turn to talk? Okay. Is it my turn to talk? Oh. So that's one of my famous techniques. And another one is, because I used to travel a lot out of town to do shows. And so when I would travel, I would record all of my lines. At the time, we had CD players in cars. And I would throw a CD in and just listen to my lines all the way. And the reason for that is we memorize music from listening. I mean, if I said, tell me your favorite song, you could quote all the lines in the song because you've heard it so much.
Right.
Not because you've read it or you wrote it, but because the repetition of hearing. Right. And that's how I teach them memorization.
And I'm sure with acting, too, it's not just knowing the lines, but knowing when to come in,
yes.
how to react to the other person, as opposed to just, as I sit here, I just read my notes, and there's no interaction until we get down to the interview part, right. and this is all, off the cuff. So I can't imagine actually learning, like you said, 80% or more of the play is you. And then having to know when that other person's coming in and how to react to their comments.
And to make those lines, and this is why I always get on my kids about learning early, to make them sound like you're talking and not like you're reciting lines.
To make them come to life.
Right. To make it just sound natural, Right. And that play in itself, I always tell people that play taught me acting, because August wrote enough lines for that guy to say, you're going to have to learn how to just regurgitate this like you're talking to people.
Yeah.
And I love that. I'd play that role again today, even though I have a poor memory. But that was a great question. Yeah.
So as far as with the young people that you're teaching at the Town Hall Theater, you had mentioned that that's one of the highlights or exciting parts right there. How are children? What are some of the tools that you're giving children for us to help them with their memorization?
I wish I could teleport you guys back to see some of the shows I've directed and then compare them to other shows that direct with kids. One of the problems I found when I first started directing kids is too many directors say, oh, but they're just kids. We just get them out on stage so their parents can see them. That's it. And I hate that idea. I would challenge kids just as much as a director as I challenge adults. And they will, under strong direction, they will step up to the challenge. Another thing is they've got to have fun. So I always include a lot of things that are funny to them or that they would do under those situations or just running around and having a good time. And then the third thing is I try to teach them the same things we're talking about, is that when you're talking to someone, you're behaving with someone, make it as natural as possible, just like real life. And I take them through the whole process of being real. And another thing that people enjoy about my shows is if I got roles for 15 kids and I've got 50 kids in the show, those 50 kids aren't just going to be standing around on stage. They're going to be getting bit parts to do. They're going to be given, and I should not say this, lines to say, or action. They're going to be involved. And so what young people in Vandalia have discovered with me, if you're in Alan's show, you're going to shine. It's one way or the other, you're going to shine, whether you have lines or songs or not. So I find it very enjoyable working with with children because they have no fear. They haven't gotten to our age where we think, oh, that feels silly, or no, I'm not going to do that.
And they've waited until they're 60 years old. They've retired. They've got time on their hands now that they can go pursue other dreams that they've never had time to do before.
Right. There is no cutoff.
Yeah.
They will always need, whether it's on stage, film, or TV, they will always need an actor that's 60, 65,
exactly.
70, 80. They will always need those. It's better to cast someone that age than to try to find a 35-year-old and say, okay, you're going to be this 75-year-old guy. I know Dustin Hoffman did that with one movie. He played several generations of a character, but that's not unusual because he is the same guy that he was playing all those years.
Right.
But and that's the good thing about acting is if you're serious and you're willing to travel and really willing to work hard, no matter what age you are when you get in, you will find something for you.
But are there additional challenges when you're older to start learning that career?
Yeah. If you, dementia, that's a challenge. Mm-hmm. But articulation, experiences, body movement, whatever your limitations are, that's what you probably would go for and you would be cast in. The only limitation that would hurt you in this business is your memory. That's it.
Now, one of the things that I remember Fellini, what he used to do, and that would be he would look for characters or people who looked like the characters that he would cast in his films.
Yeah. Now that's
Federico Fellini.
Yeah, and that's a hard truth that I have to explain to my students at Wright State is that I don't care how good you are. I don't care how you think you can do better than that girl or guy. If they think, no, that looks like a Midwestern waitress to me, you don't. You're a little too pretty or whatever the case may be, they're going to cast that person that visually looks that way. And, I won't necessarily say that I went into the film, because in theater, I was cast as any and everything, and that was great. But when I went into film and TV, that I had an idea of what I was auditioning for. I found out that I was being cast as judges, detectives, police officers, anybody of authority is where they would mostly cast me. I've even played a mayor and a pastor. So I've said, okay, and once I figured that out, then that's what I aimed for. Now,
you embrace the stereotype.
Absolutely. Yeah. You've got to, because you can't fight the system of Hollywood. That's what they're thinking. And this is always something that I hear sometime down the line, and it's always funny, is, well, I don't want to limit myself. Okay, well, you don't have to. They will.
Yes.
They will.
Not everyone is a Meryl Streep or Dustin Hoffman and has that breadth in their experience in acting.
And the people you named have started out in certain roles that they played, and when they got the respect, they said, okay, Tom Hanks is another one of those. Yeah, now I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to try that.
Right.
And people will let them do it, But you got to earn that.
But I think more often than not, the character actor is just as employed, if not more employed, than sometimes than the leading man or leading woman that has a longer career.
Oh, my goodness. You are the first human being that I've talked about acting that notices that. Yeah. There is this documentary called, what's the name of that guy in that thing? And it's all character actors talking about their work and how they are. They're in more movies than the stars are, if you think about it.
That's right.
Because they need those character actors. They need those faces that you see in the same guy playing the detective that's playing the chief, that's playing the,
often fitting that stereotype. And it's like, okay, we know exactly who we're going to cast because he's done it 100 times.
Right. When I did Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile, one of the guys playing the attorney, I had seen him on several TV shows, and I could not remember his name, but I knew his face. Yeah. And I walked up to him and I said, man, I love your work. And I tried to name something he was in, and I said, weren't you in the Good Wife? He said, yeah, I played so-and-so. I said, oh, okay. And then I started, and you look at, if you go back in IMDb, these guys, you look at their resume, oh my goodness. Yeah. It is huge. They work all the time.
Absolutely.
And we as viewers, we don't care. We don't mind that we see them because they're not, quote unquote, the focus of the movie.
Right.
And those are the people that after a while, they start working less and less because the focus of what we want changes.
Exactly.
Alan, we were getting into your experience as far as with the Dayton VA. How did you come about?
So after I went to college and was acting in the community, I started teaching. And then I got a great opportunity at Dayton Public Schools to become a drama teacher at Colonel White. And that gave me insurance, which was great, So at the time, I didn't have any real needs, If I wanted to go to a doctor, I even got my first not cataract, but eye correction surgery, all of that through the school, and it cost me very little. Then they cut over 300 teachers, and the arts teachers were one of the first ones to go. And my wife and I found ourselves unemployed, and so we started I said, I'm going to dive into acting 100%, but I was not covered by anything, And I remember having a conversation with my brother, and he said, well, why don't you go to the VA? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, the VA hospital, you're military. You can go to the VA hospital. I said, I don't have any money to be a part. Go, talk to them, sign up. They'll start, seeing you. And I thought he was nuts. I thought, well, maybe you did, and, maybe something happened when you were in the military and they gave you that opportunity. So I went and I signed up, and immediately they started working on my diabetes because that was one of the issues I had. And they found other things, high blood pressure and all that. And I started getting medication. And I found that the billing was very minimum, and I'm like, what the heck's going on here? And I have been going there ever since. And the funny thing is, when I first started going there, and I love my wife to death, we are the best partners in the world, she was a little skeptical. You going to the VA? Well, yeah. Why? Because they take care of me. Hello? I'm still an uninsured man. I mean, now I have Medicare because I'm retired. But they take wonderful care of me. And she realized it. It really was sold to her when I broke my leg in January. And they took me to a regular hospital, and I kept saying, take me to the VA, take me to the VA. So they finally transferred to the VA, and they took good care of me, and they gave me therapy, and they gave me medication. And she thought that we were just, we're going to get all flooded with all these bills and everything. And between Medicaid and the VA, I've seen probably the most minimal bills that I've ever had in my life. And I know this sounds cliche, but they changed my life. They literally changed my life. I now wake up, do things, go to bed, feeling secure, feeling comfort. Sorry, guys.
Hey, Alan, that was an amazing story. And finally, we'll have Hollis Melson, a U.S. Army veteran and talented bass player, sharing his story after this break.
I was in the military. I didn't know that when I left, I was eligible for health care through the VA. I thought you had to be disabled or have been wounded. Another vet told me I should check it out. Now, I have the care I need at the Dayton VA.
Don't wait another day to see how the VA may help you.
I'm a vet, and it's my VA. Make it your VA today.
Call 937-268-6511, extension 2159 to enroll, or visit dayton.va.gov.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. If you're having a tough time or thinking about suicide, you're not alone, and there's hope. VA's Veterans Crisis Line has responders who listen and help. Many are veterans or have veteran family members and friends, so they're prepared to address your challenges. Don't wait. Dial 988, then press 1.
And now, Hollis Melson, a U.S. Army veteran and talented bass player for the renowned funk band Sun. Hollis served in the U.S. Army. He stated that it provided him with the opportunity to hone his musical skills and perform for audiences locally and around the world. Hollis' thunderous bass lines have been sampled, a staple of the legendary funk band Sun. Now, on to Hollis, sharing his journey. Once you had transplanted here to Dayton, you started playing in school. That's where you came in contact as far as with members of the Majestics, right?
Yeah, I joined the choir at Roosevelt to, kind of give me some music experience.
Okay. Now, there was one of the music teachers here that a lot of famous or renowned artists from this era that they...
Mr. Spencer.
Mr. Spencer, right.
Mr. Spencer had all of us for Lakeside. He had all of us.
Right.
Went through him.
Right. Now, with that, who taught you how, or who was your influence on playing your instrument, your particular instrument?
I liked Motown.
Okay, so that influenced you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I liked the because we had a singing group. We did Temptations. We did a lot of Temptations. We had initially did James Brown. Then we got the singing group, because, you usually play whatever singer sing. So they were singing the Temptations, and I love the Temptations, because they got those, they got bass intros.
Oh, the Funk Brothers.
Yeah, they got those bass intros, or whatever they are.
Mm-hmm.
Some intro, And
so is that what made you decide to play the bass?
No, we all had guitars. I had a guitar. Marcy down with the Ohio players had a guitar. Booster Collins, he had a guitar. But it was so many guitar players, nobody didn't need no guitar players no more. So they said, we need a bass player. We got to have a bass player. And so we had to all switch to bass. And the guy had told me, he said, man, we need a bass player. I had a lead guitar. He said, man, we need a bass player. I said, man, I don't know how to play bass. He said, man, I can show you how to do it. I said, what? I said, man, if you can do that, let's go.
Nice.
The guy said, well, I can do it. The guy took me over there and showed me about 2 or 3 songs initially, and I've been playing ever since. Just like that. Great. And I didn't know C minor from C major at the time. And I didn't go, I went to St. Clair later and learned, about music. But initially, I didn't know C minor from C major, and I traveled all over the world.
Yeah, well, it's done you well. So tell us about your experience with playing with Son.
Well, Son, that was a unique experience. I got to do some things that I would have never imagined, like playing at the Apollo on the show with James Brown, of course, But we was at the Apollo with James Brown in 1978, he was kind of in the middle of the beginning and the end of all of the great things that he had done, So at the time we was at the Apollo, it wasn't that big. But some of the unique shows, I think one of the best shows that we ever did was in Oakland, California, when we first went to California, at the Oakland Coliseum with Booster Collins, George Clinton, Parliament, and Funkadelics, and all of them James Brown guys was there that night, because James Brown was working at the time. You had Maceo, St. Clair, all those guys, the baddest guys in the business. All of them at the same night, And I guess I never thought about all these great guys that I'm up against, because in my head, I wanted to go,
So were you starstruck by them, or were they just like part of the gang to you? Or
that particular night was kind of like part of the game, because I never seen nothing like that before, and I never seen nothing like that after, as far as the love and everybody not trying to, we just having fun, playing and just having fun. Nobody trying to outdo the other, and nobody concerned about who the best and all of this and that, like people normally do, And it was just one of the greatest, and that was my first trip to California, one of the greatest experiences of all times. I said, man, I sure wish I had the video that night of that show that night.
Now, part of your history also, you recorded at King Records, right?
Recorded at King Records, Chess Records, and Capitol Records.
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing I know in your conversation you were saying, you also are confused a lot of times with playing with the
Ohio players.
Tell us about that right there.
Was three in my original group, the Majestics. It was 6 members. Well, 3 of them went to the Ohio Players. You know, the drummer, the leader of the Ohio Players, now Diamond, started playing with the Majestics. And Clarence, the guitar player with the Ohio Players, started playing with the Majestics. And the trumpet player, who's no longer there, he started playing with the Majestics. And so, you know, I had played with all those guys years before they went to the Ohio Players. And then they had some advertising out one time that they used our picture, the open night low, because they was the one that was in the Ohio Players, and that's why people was thinking I was in the Ohio Players, because they had these pictures of me with them, you know. And I had told them one time, I said, I'm gonna have to sue y'all. People going on here thinking I'm in the Ohio Players and think I got money and they want to rob me and kill me, and here I am broke.
Well, hey, in the business they say no publicity, or any publicity is not bad publicity, right?
Yeah.
So,
okay. I started we got processed in at Fort Campbell, and we went to Fort Knox. I went in the military on December 7th. 1965. I didn't know about that at the time. And went to Fort Knox, Kentucky. So we was only there for about a week before Christmas came. We came home for Christmas. And I had some knots upside my head and from getting in fights.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I had a busted lip and everything when I came home from the military.
Now, did you join right after high school, or?
Now, what happened when I got my military papers, my military paper wasn't filled out completely. They didn't have no reporting date or reporting place or nothing on my military papers. And so when I first got them, I didn't really pay no attention or whatever. And I had got them in the summer of 65. So now we had Thanksgiving of 65. We had went to Toledo to a family, and I was telling my stepdad about these papers that I have. And so my stepdad got the papers and looked at it. He said, boy, these are draft papers.
Oops.
Yeah. He said, you need to go down there Monday morning and take care of this. I said, okay. Monday morning came. I went down there Monday morning. They filled out the papers. I had to leave Wednesday.
Oh, wow, that was quick.
Yeah, that was quick. And so I came back and told everybody what sort I had to go down to Georgia visit my daddy before I left. Because, you know, I'm going in the military. You don't know if you're coming back or not, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's, it just hit me just like that, you know, because I didn't really pay no attention to those draft papers. And the draft paper was blank for as I can remember.
So,
I think they tricked me.
Okay. So why did you join? Why did you choose the career field telecommunications?
I didn't choose that. They chose that for me.
Oh.
Because when I took my test in Cincinnati that morning, we left Dayton, went to Cincinnati, from the park down there in the Federal Building, where we got our shots. That's where we took the test and all of this and that. And when I first took my test, I didn't want to go to the military. I had just went down the thing and marked X's everywhere. So they came and got me, and told me, put me in the room and told me, he said, first of all, he said, you're going to the military. He said, I don't care what you do when you get there. He said, I don't care if you share them or no. He said, you're going in the military. He said, what I'm saying to you is we're going to give you a chance to take this test again, and that you should do the best that you can do so you can be the best that you can be, which made sense to me, you know.
Uh-huh.
It made sense to me. So I went back and took the test again. Then they come out and tell me I'm in telephone communication. I'm like, y'all must have the wrong guy. Because I never had no idea that I could do nothing like that, you know. My confidence wasn't too high at that point, you know.
It's all
and
aptitude.
I went on and became one of the best telephone communications people that they had, of course. Well, no, I literally went to the VA immediately because of what had happened when I got out of the military. And the same thing happened to me when I went in the military. Those boots had my feet, the bottom of my foot was so sore that I couldn't walk from those boots.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened when I was those lineman boots that I was wearing. And my foot so I went to the VA because I had insurance with the telephone company then, but I don't know why I went to the VA, but I chose to go to the VA, and that's where I went, and I always went to the VA.
Right. Well, those combat boots don't come with Dr. Scholl's lining, so they're known for sort of causing some issues. But that's why I was asking. It's like, okay, so that you had some issues from your military service that brought you to the VA right after you left the military.
Yes.
Tell us about your experience with the VA ever since then.
Well, I've had good experience with the VA.
So it's good to have the VA plus your regular insurance. So
sure.
So in some cases, because people may not know that you can still have your outside provider and at the same time utilize the VA as well. So overall, if you were telling another veteran out there who may not have health insurance in place right now, serve their country, what would you tell them as far as why they should use the VA?
They have some of the best doctors in the world, as far as I know. They got good service. In the last couple of years, things have gotten much better. And I'm guessing they can take care of any problem medical that you got, because they have so many people that they have to deal with, and that they should be experienced all around on everything, because many veterans with the many problems, that pretty much covers everything.
As mentioned earlier, these are excerpts from previous interviews that can be found on My VA Dayton podcast, wherever you get your podcasts from. You can hear their full interviews. Again, these are veterans who have served with honor. Their stories are a testament to the resilience and the talent of Black Americans in the military and beyond. Again, we want to thank you for listening.
Our veterans put everything on the line to protect our freedom. We may never be able to repay them for their sacrifice, but we can show them just how much we appreciate all they've done. Every day, hundreds of people just like you volunteer to help our veterans. You can help by simply sharing your time, lending a warm smile, a supportive hand, or a sympathetic ear to someone who needs it. Everyone can do something to make our veterans know how much we appreciate their service. What will you do?
The Dayton VA changed my life. There was a time I was jobless and homeless, didn't know where to turn for help. I felt like there was no hope for me. Then I learned about the Dayton VA. They helped me find the help I needed to get back on track. I received support, got a job, found a place to live. I got my life back.
Don't wait another day to see how the VA may help you.
I'm a vet, and it's my VA. Make it your VA today.
To enroll, call 937-268-6511, extension 5336, or visit dayton.va.gov.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Veteran service organizations, often known as VSOs, offer many services for veterans and their families. To learn more, go to va.gov.
We want to say thanks again to our special guests for taking time today to share their story. We truly enjoy hearing stories from veterans from across the region and learning more about how they found care through the Dayton VA Medical Center. And as always, we want to thank our listeners for joining us and remind them, if they are a veteran and are not enrolled, to enroll with the Veterans Health Administration to receive health care benefits through the Dayton VA Medical Center. It's easy and it doesn't cost a thing. You just need to be a veteran. The simplest way to start enrollment is to call our enrollment and eligibility office at 937-268-6511, extension 4105. They can schedule an appointment for you to come to the Dayton campus or help make an appointment at one of the surrounding community-based outpatient clinics located at Springfield, Richmond, Lima, and Middletown. Again, that number is 937-268-6511, extension 4105. Veterans may also enroll by visiting www.choose.va.gov/health. While there, you can choose from applying online or by phone or by mail. It's just that simple, really. As I said before, it doesn't cost a thing to apply. So what are you waiting for? Call us today. Or, if you know of a veteran who is not enrolled, have them call to start taking advantage of this benefit. If you're a veteran, it's your VA. Sign up today. Join us again for another episode of My VA Dayton with the Dayton VA Medical Center. Our episodes drop 15th of each month. Thanks again for listening to My VA Dayton.